Namo Buddhaya, and welcome to the Buddha Dharma TV Saturday program. I am Lisa Chu. Today we will start with a Dharma talk, a song followed by a Jataka tale. The Dharma talk today is by Venerable Ajahn Brahmali, who explained how he came across the Buddhist path and the reason he decided to become a monk, in particular after experiencing the breath meditation that led him to pursue this path further. Ajahn explains how through experience you gain confidence in the teaching of the Buddha, and he discusses the Kalama Sutta. We are grateful to the Venerable for sharing with us the sutta.
Kind of organize the structure here, so we're going to have a look at some of the most basic things and then move forward. What we have looked at so far is more like an overview of the path, and this is going to be a bit more kind of suttas in a structured sequence, I think. The first one here is the Majjhima Nikaya 43, called the Mahavedalla Sutta in the Pali language. The great elaboration, which is like a sutta on various topics of the Dhamma. And it has some interesting pieces in it, and we're going to look at one of these little bits that relate directly to what we are talking about, which is liberation of the mind, etc. So this is what this says. This is the discussion between Venerable Sariputta, I think, and Venerable Mahakotita, I think. So let's see what they have to say about this particular topic. How many conditions are there for the arising of right view? Arising of right view, so this is like becoming a stream enter. So what are required to become a stream enter? How many conditions? What was that? For the arising of right view, so it must be before, right? For the arising, so it must be how many conditions do you need beforehand for right view to happen? Arising, yes. There are two conditions for the arising of right view. The voice of another and wise attention, wise rational application of the mind. These are the two conditions for the arising of right view. So again, the point with this is that it shows you the importance, first of all, of the voice of another. The voice of another here is the Buddha, the Buddha arising in the world. That's where the voice comes, and if not the Buddha, then some other person who is a noble one, someone who has that kind of insight. And without that kind of insight, then of course there is no voice of another, and then you are kind of at a loss. There is nowhere to go. So that is the starting point. That is kind of how right view, just look at the gradual training. It always starts with the arising of a Buddha in the world. That's how the training comes into existence. And the arising of a Buddha is, what is that? Well, it just means that someone, more or less randomly, more or less kind of by chance, all the conditions come together and they become a Buddha because of that. Becoming a Buddha is almost like a natural phenomenon. Every now and again someone is able to see things according to reality without having a previous Buddha. So this is the voice of another. And then the other one is that you have to apply your mind wisely. So these two things are kind of the requirements on the path. That's really all you need. So here's wise application stands for the entire path after you hear the voice from another. So this is a nice way of thinking about the path, a slightly different angle from what we have seen before, but right view standing at the beginning. And then, what happens then? When right view is supported by how many factors, does it have freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom as its fruit and benefit? So freedom of the heart and freedom by the wisdom, this is the purpose of the entire practice. This is what it means to be an arahant. Freedom of the heart is ceto vimutti, freedom of the mind, if you like. Ceto is mind or heart. And what that means is that you are free from defilements, because when the defilements are there, the mind is limited and contracted. We saw the various kinds of freedom of the heart before, the various immaterial attainments, the various Brahma Viharas. These are all freedom of the heart. You are liberated from some kind of oppressive force. And these oppressive forces are basically the defilements. It's kind of hard to really gauge this until you kind of come to a point when you have this kind of experience, and then you know why these things are oppressive. Your mind is liberated from these things. And the freedom by wisdom is the freedom of insight, of understanding. The kind of the knowledge that you gain, the insight that you gain from seeing things according to reality. These are the two freedoms that you see on the path all the time. Freedom of the heart, where your mind is free, the mind feels free, the mind is kind of unencumbered by all of these things that drag it down and make it narrow and small and stupid. And then the freedom by wisdom, which means you see things in such a way that the mind can never again be encumbered by these things. The freedom that arises from understanding, from insight into the nature of the mind and body. So we start with right view, which comes from another, and then this is supported by these factors, and then it leads to arahantship. What are these five? When right view is supported by five factors, it has freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom as its fruit and benefit. It's when right view is supported by ethics, sila, learning, sutta, discussion, sakacha, serenity, samatha, and discernment, vipassana. When right view is supported by these five factors, it has freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom as its fruit and benefit. So this is a kind of an interesting list. These are a particular way of thinking about the training, and you start to these are a little bit different from what you normally see on the Noble Eightfold Path. Ethics, ethics of course is always there, the idea of sila, and learning, however, is kind of something you don't normally see. Learning means hearing, sutta. It means you have a kind of a accumulated knowledge of suttas, so you can kind of look at things from various angles. And it's interesting that in theory, you don't really need to learn many suttas. If you understand one sutta very profoundly, it can be enough if you're very sharp and you don't have many defilements, etc. But for many people, it is helpful to see the teachings from different angles and different viewpoints, and therefore have a kind of slightly broader understanding of the suttas. It helps you in kind of in gaining a broader picture, like a complete picture of the Dhamma, if you wish. And then you have this very interesting idea of discussion, sakacha. And the idea here is that it's good to have like conversations about the Dhamma, having an opportunity to ask questions, having a chance to disagree. This is why Venerable over here disagrees with me occasionally, which is good. It's nice to be able to disagree like that, and then you can kind of gain a deeper understanding of things, because sometimes we may not see things quite in the same way, and then hopefully you can kind of find a deeper understanding for that, but mostly about at least discussing what is going on. It's also can get very boring if it is one person teaching all the time and everyone else is listening. But if you feel you can engage, then the mind engages more with the material because you are part of it and you're discussing it. And then you have serenity and insight, samatha and vipassana, and these are the two aspects of the mind that are developed together. The calm of the mind, the samatha, and the clear seeing of the mind, the vipassana. Vipassana means clear seeing, and samatha means calm. Now what is interesting about these two things, samatha and vipassana, is that they are two results of the development of the path. Yeah, very often when we think about samatha vipassana, we think about two kinds of meditation: samatha meditation, vipassana meditation. But actually, there is no such thing in the suttas. There is no samatha meditation, there is no vipassana meditation, there is just meditation. And for example, anapanasati, if you do mindfulness or breathing, that is just meditation. But however, it has two results. What are those two results? Samatha and vipassana. So all meditation that works always has these two results. So these things are qualities of the mind that are required for awakening to happen, and these qualities are developed through meditation. And why is that the case? The reason is because the purpose of meditation, like anapanasati, watching the breath, or other meditations, is to reduce the defilements. If it works properly, the defilements go down. And when the defilements go down, it has two effects. You become more peaceful because the defilements make the mind unpeaceful, because the defilements draw the mind into the future and the past. You have desires as the future, ill will is often about the past. And so it calms the mind down. But if you don't have defilements, you also see more clearly, because the defilements of the mind, they bias the mind. They lead the mind to see things that it shouldn't be seeing. It see bad when, because of ill will, leads to a bias towards other people. Desire leads to a bias. So both of these things come from the same cause, which is the reduction of the defilements. So when the defilements go down, you must have more calm, and you also have more clear seeing. You have more samatha and you have more vipassana. And this is, I think, very interesting, because it takes away so much of this discussion about whether you should practice samatha, vipassana. You should practice both, because they arise out of the same thing, which is the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. Anyway, so when right view is supported by these 5 factors, it has freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom as its fruit and benefit. So, there you are. This is the, what is it called again here? The great elaboration, the Maha Vedalla Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 43 here. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at one final sutta for today. And this is from the Numerical Discourses, Anguttara Nikaya, the Threes, Sutta 40. And the sutta is called In Charge. And it goes as follows. There are mendicants these 3 things to put in charge. What 3? Putting oneself in charge, putting the world in charge, or putting the teaching in charge. So what this means is that there are 3 ways of motivating yourself, 3 ways by which you make progress on the path, and you kind of tell yourself to sit down and practice properly. Either you do it because of putting yourself in charge, you feel I should be doing this, and so you do it, or you put other people's opinions in charge, and you say, oh, they think this, so therefore I should practice. Or you put the Dhamma in charge. And as so often, the most powerful way is the last one, putting the Dhamma in charge. Because it means if you really understand these teachings, then you allow those teachings to motivate you and to drive you forward on the path. These other ones are coming a little bit more from the sense of self, but the last one is coming from a higher degree of purity, and that's why it is the most powerful one. So let's see how this works, and how they kind of how they motivate you at different times in the practice. And what mendicants is putting oneself in charge is when a mendicant has gone to the wilderness, or to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, and they reflect like this. So, first of all, it's kind of interesting where it starts off here. It starts off with the standard way that the suttas talk about meditation practice. So when the suttas talk about someone who is kind of serious about meditation, that is how they talk about this. You go to a secluded place. These are the secluded places, into the wilderness, to the foot of a tree or an empty hut. This means that you are serious about meditation. You're already doing quite well. You already kind of prepared the foundations of the path. And then because you are serious, then you get serious reflection. So you reflect like this as a consequence. So now usually comes meditation practice at this point. I didn't go forth from lay life to homelessness for the sake of robes, alms, food, lodgings, or rebirth in this or that state. But I was swamped by rebirth, old age and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. I was swamped by suffering, mired in suffering. This is how someone reflects when they go into solitude. It's fascinating. Sometimes when you are in the world, it can be very difficult to see things clearly. You're kind of trapped by the world, you're trapped by your attachments and your desires, and getting a sense of perspective can be really difficult. So sometimes you need to go into solitude to clarify things, withdraw in a sense physically and also mentally from the worldly phenomena, and then kind of clarity re-emerges. Why did I really become a monastic again? Why did I become a kind of a serious practitioner of meditation or whatever it is? Well, actually, because of these things, because of suffering, that's why. Because there is an issue, there is a problem in life. You're going to die, all of these things are going to happen. You are swamped and mired in suffering. What does that mean? Does that mean that you have to suffer a lot before you can become a monk or a nun? Or before you can, become a serious practitioner? Is that what it means? What does it actually mean? And the answer is no. It's not like you have to suffer an enormous amount. Because if you reflect carefully, it is kind of obvious that there is suffering in life. You don't have to kind of break a leg or anything like that, or, everyone in your family has to die or something. That's not really how it works. It's about understanding these things. And these things can be understood without having to go through it, first of all. That's the positive thing about this. So it is more like an insight. It's an understanding of the nature of life. The nature of life is that you are mired in these things. You are swamped by these things. It's impossible to avoid them. And your life may be going very well, and suddenly these things overcome you. When you least expect them. And the earlier in life that you realize this, the more powerful it is, because then you can make some kind of countervailing measure. You can ensure that you start to get out of these things. And so much about the idea of suffering is not that you have to experience them, but that you have to reflect on life carefully to see that this is the reality of existence. Things will change. Everything that is dear and pleasing to you must become otherwise, right? There's a kind of standard reflections in the sutras. Everyone must die. Everything is impermanent. Everything is unreliable. And the more you kind of grasp this, the more you grasp that existence is inherently problematic. So this has to do more with insight than it has to do with experience. Sometimes it helps to experience a little bit, but that is not really what this means. And I thought, and this was now the person is reflecting back for why they went forth in the first place. Hopefully I can find an end to this entire mass of suffering. And of course then you hear the Dhamma, and then your faith and confidence grows, because this is exactly what it is about. But it would not be appropriate for me to seek sensual pleasures like those I abandoned when I went forth, or even worse. So you have gone forth, and so you say to yourself, it's not appropriate anymore for me to seek for those same sensual pleasures. It's almost like here you have a sense of pride. I am a monastic now, and this is not really appropriate for me, so I have to go beyond these things. So you're coming from what you might call maybe a slight conceit or whatever, but you're using that conceit in a way to kind of make you act in the right kind of way. So then they reflect, my energy shall be roused up and unflagging. Mindfulness shall be established and lucid. My body shall be tranquil and undisturbed, and my mind shall be stilled. So this is something you see throughout the sutras. You are now in seclusion, and you're going to practice that path of meditation that leads to all of these things. Yeah, you are energetic, you are mindful, you are tranquil, and your mind is still. These are all the qualities of someone whose meditation is going well. Yeah, energy comes with the joy. We saw the joy before. This is part of the awakening factors, both energy and joy. Mindfulness is an awakening factor. Tranquility is an awakening factor. Stillness is an awakening factor. So here you're seeing pretty much most of the awakening factors right there in that short summary of the reflection. So in other words, I'm going to develop these awakening factors. That is what is appropriate, and I'm not going to go into sensuality or kind of go in the reverse on the path. And so it is almost coming from the sense of pride of what you're supposed to be here. Putting themselves in charge, they give up the unskillful and develop the skillful. They give up the blameworthy and develop the blameless, and they keep themselves pure. This is called putting oneself in charge. So this is one way of putting yourself in charge. One way of kind of putting in charge, rather. What about the next one? And what mendicants is putting the world in charge? It is when a mendicant has gone to the wilderness or to the foot of a tree or to an empty hut and reflects like this. I didn't go forth from lay life to homelessness for the sake of robes, alms food, lodgings, or rebirth in this or that state. But I was swamped by rebirth, old age, death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. I was swamped by suffering, mired in suffering. And I thought, hopefully, I can find an end to this entire mass of suffering. So the same as we saw with the previous one. And now, since I've gone forth, I might have sensual, malicious, or cruel thoughts. But the population of the world is large, and there are ascetics and Brahmins who have psychic power. They are clairvoyant and can read the minds of others. They see far without being seen. They're hiding away and looking through the bushes or whatever. Even by those close, and they understand the minds of others. They would know me. Look at this gentleman. He has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness. But he is living mixed up with bad, unskillful qualities. And there are deities too who have psychic power. They're clairvoyant and can read the minds of others. They see far without being seen, even by those close. And they understand the minds of others. They would know of me. Look at this gentleman. He has gone forth out of faith from the lay life to homelessness. But he's still living mixed up with bad, unskillful qualities. Then that person reflects. They're kind of embarrassed by what the deities or the mind readers of the world think, a bit embarrassed by that, so they think, oh, okay, my energy shall be roused up and unflagging, mindfulness shall be established and lucid, my body shall be tranquil and undisturbed, and my mind shall be stilled, putting the world in charge, in other words, people in charge or whatever. They give up the unskillful and develop the skillful. They give up the blameworthy and develop the blameless. And they keep themselves pure. This is called putting the world in charge. So you can see that both of these they're okay, but they're not the super best way for being motivated. You are a little bit vain, or you're a little bit kind of self-concerned, or a little bit conceited, or whatever. And the other one is that you are afraid of what others are going to think of you. It's okay to be motivated by this thing, but it's not the ideal way. So now comes the ideal way of being motivated, what we should really put in charge. And what mendicants is putting the Dhamma, the teaching, in charge? It is when a mendicant has gone to a wilderness, or the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, and reflects like this. I didn't conform from lay life to homelessness for the sake of robes, alms, food, lodgings, or rebirth in this or that state. But I was swamped by rebirth, old age, and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. I was swamped by suffering, mired in suffering. And I thought, hopefully, I can find an end to this entire mass of suffering. So just like before. Then they think the teaching is well explained by the Buddha, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, inviting inspection, relevant, so that sensible people can know it for themselves. I have spiritual companions who live knowing and seeing, and now that I have gone forth in this well-explained teaching and training, it would not be appropriate for me to live lazy and heedless. Then they reflect again, my energy shall be roused up, unflagging, mindfulness shall be established and lucid, my body shall be tranquil and undisturbed, and my mind shall be immersed in samadhi or stilled. Putting the teaching in charge, they give up the unskillful and develop the skillful. They give up the blameworthy and develop the blameless, and they keep themselves pure. This is called putting the teaching in charge. So, here you are basically just reflecting on the Dhamma, and you know the power of the Dhamma. You can see that you have spiritual companions who have already achieved the results, and you are just inspired by the fact, seeing others who have gone a long way, seeing what they have got out of that, and understanding that the Dhamma has that power to get you there, to this place. And so this is kind of the highest kind of motivation. And this particular paragraph you see here, the teaching is well explained by the Buddha, apparent in the present life. You know this teaching, very commonly found in the suttas, svakato bhagavata dhammo sandittiko vakaliko ehipasiko opanaiko pacchatang veditabo vinyuhiti. This is the standard way that the Buddha says we should reflect on the Dhamma in the suttas. Very commonly recited in Buddhist countries. The chanting that they will do will very often be part of this, the chanting to the triple gem. And one of the interesting words here is the word opanayika. It is here translated as relevant. And relevant, yes, the Dhamma is of course relevant, it kind of makes sense. Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as applicable. In other words, you can apply the Dhamma, it makes sense. But is that what Upanayika really means? Kind of, but maybe, to my mind, maybe not the most obvious translation of this word. Upanayika means upa plus nayaka. Nayaka means to lead towards something. You have the great nayakas around the world, the Buddhist leaders. Actually, that means the leader. So Upanayika actually means leading towards, leading to, leading onwards. In other words, leading onwards towards the goal, the purpose of the Dhamma, towards happiness, away from suffering, towards nibbana, towards peace, towards freedom, towards liberation. All of these things that we're seeing in the suttas. So it means leading towards, leading on. This is what the Dhamma does. And the reason why this is so interesting in this context is that very often it feels like we are doing the practice. Just like before, he's motivated by himself, I will do this, it is appropriate for me to do this, coming from the conceit of I am and these kind of things. It feels like we are doing the practice. I am the one who is being kind. I am the one who is being generous. I am the one who is meditating. Okay, now I am meditating. I have to guide my mind in the right way. Or if not that, then you are concerned about what other people think. I better practice well because otherwise my friends in the BGF, they're going to think that I'm kind of just slacking off or whatever. I don't know what you think. Well, you probably don't think that kind of thing, but maybe sometimes these things happen and you feel kind of other people's eyes are on you, and so you want to do the right kind of thing here. But this is not ideal, because we all know if we try to do the meditation, that's often when it doesn't work. Yeah, we do it, we force ourselves to watch the breath, and suddenly it becomes very unpleasant. When you try to watch the breath, it actually, and you are in control, it becomes that control of the breath actually doesn't feel natural, doesn't flow naturally anymore. You can't really relax properly. And you get samadhi headaches, and you get all of these things that kind of people talk about. Please don't go there. But allowing the Dhamma to be in charge means that when you are practicing, when you are meditating, you just sit back. You don't do the meditation. You allow it to proceed. And then if there is an obstacle and it isn't going quite right, instead of saying, okay, I have got to do it right, ask yourself, what is the Dhamma here? What would the Buddha say now? What is the right way of leaning your mind? And if you already are a stream enterer, you don't have to ask these questions, because naturally the mind will move according to the Dhamma. Yeah? This is why a stream enterer has an easy time with meditation practice. So we try to approximate to being stream enterers. We try to be little stream enterers. Yeah? Kind of a nice way of thinking about it, yeah, being a little stream enterer. And so we ask, well, what would the Buddha maybe do here? What would a great meditator do? What does the Dhamma say about this? And then we know that the Dhamma will say, forget thinking about those sensual pleasures in life. Forget thinking about the problems at work. Let go of my family and my house for a while. Yeah? They have to look after themselves anyway because I'm meditating right now. No point in thinking about them. This is what the Buddha and the Dhamma would say. This is the wrong time to think about these things. And then the mind kind of leans in a different direction. The Buddha would say, that is not where you find meaning. This is not what life is really about. Okay, let it go. And then the mind kind of goes in the right direction. So allowing the Dhamma to be in charge means remembering the instructions, remembering the teachings, asking yourself what someone who understands this, what they would do, instead of you doing it. And then sometimes it's almost like you just go with your intuition. What does your intuition say? Yeah, deep down you know plenty enough Dhamma already to know where you're supposed to go. And so you just ask yourself, what is the right thing right now? And then you move along. Upanayika, allowing the Dhamma to be in charge. Not you, not others, not the defilements, not the conceit, but the Dhamma. Okay, let's have another 5-minute break, and then we can finish off and do some more Q&A afterwards.
Ajahn, I think in what you mentioned here, I think it reminds me of one of the talks of Ajahn Brahm, when he was assigned by Ajahn Chah to go to Australia. But before he goes there, in a few months, he thought to himself that what I do here right now, whether I put forth effort or not, is going to affect the laities over there. So if I slack off, it may actually destroy the faith. So if I put forth effort, it may inspire faith. So that kind of thoughts is more like Bodhisattva ideal. So where does it falls into this? Which category it falls into this sutta?
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of falls a bit between the cracks. It's not kind of any of these, but I think it is. The idea of being of benefit for other people. That's kind of really what it comes down to in that case. Yeah, you want to be a benefit for yourself and benefit to others. And so that's kind of, Ajahn Brahm has a bit of this bodhisattva thing. That's why he kind of travels around everywhere and teaches everywhere. Remember there was a nun, she was a Fokwan Shan nun, Venerable Yifa, I think was her name. I don't know if you've heard about her. She's quite a well-known Fokwan Shan nun. She was living in California, I think. And she said to Ajahn Brahm that you are more bodhisattva than the Mahayana monks and nuns. That's what she said to Ajahn Brahm. You do more. And that's kind of interesting, right? Because that is an artificial divide, the idea that somehow if you are Theravada, you're not of any benefit, but if you're Mahayana, it's not really like that. Yeah? The reality is very different. And so I think anyone who is practicing the Theravada path rightly are actually incredibly generous. You have to be very generous, otherwise you can't get into deep meditation. So I think for someone like Ajahn Brahm, that's just a natural kind of expression of how he is. He does things for others. And there's something very beautiful about this way of meditating as well. You meditate not for yourself but for others. If you sit down and close your eyes and you say, actually I'm doing this as a gift for the world, it has a different attitude. There's a different way of thinking about it. I'm doing this for others, and suddenly that changes your idea of what your meditation is about. And it kind of brings the idea of generosity into your meditation right there. And because generosity is such a powerful force, it actually helps the meditation right away. It doesn't become so centered on me, I am meditating, it becomes centered on the whole world. And the reality is, it is a gift for the whole world, because when you meditate, you gain insight and peace, you become a better person afterwards, you learn something on the way, you gain some insights, and suddenly you have more to share with the world afterwards. I think that's where he's coming from. It doesn't quite fit into these categories here. You're quite right, but maybe it fits in the last one. Maybe it's like the Dhamma quality. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Ajahn, the first two on putting oneself in charge and putting the world in charge, it brings to mind the Hiri and Ottappa. Is it similar?
Is it similar to Hiri Ottappa? Yes, a little bit, isn't it? It is. You're right about that, actually, because you feel Hiri is like you feel a bit ashamed, maybe of yourself. Oh, I should really be doing this. I should, this is kind of. I'm a monk. I'm a monastic. This is appropriate for me. And the other one. Is also Hiri, because you are concerned about the other people's opinions about you. That's also Hiri, a sense of shame. Oh, what if they see me? I'm doing this. That's really dodgy, and I shouldn't be doing this. So Hiri, Ottappa is a fear of the consequences. It's not so much Ottappa, but certainly Hiri is this. Yeah. So thank you. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Good evening, Ajahn.
Good
Just
evening,
want to ask. The first sutta you mentioned after the tea break was, it has freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom as its fruit and benefit.
Yeah.
I would like to ask why they differentiate fruit and benefit. Is it, and at the same time, is it saying freedom of the heart is the fruit, and freedom by wisdom is the benefit?
Yeah. I don't think so. I think the way that the Pali often works is that they often use many words to say the same thing, and sometimes you have long series of synonyms without really being much difference in meaning. And very often that's just because if you use synonyms, then it's more likely you will be able to keep that Dhamma as it actually was originally. If you only have one word, it can very easily be corrupted. But if you have many words, synonyms, it's easier to keep the oral tradition alive. So it's a way of preserving the oral tradition. So we say fruits and benefits. Yeah, it doesn't mean both are fruits and benefits. Both Ceto Vimutti and Panya Vimutti, liberation of the heart and liberation by wisdom. So I don't think there is any real difference personally. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
Let us now listen to a Buddhist song by wayfarers.
Climb the path with gladness in the field of life, vanquishing illusion, ignorance and strife. Brotherhood and service shall our motto be. This the greatest lesson by Lord Buddha showed. Forward marching ever in the Dharma's might, till we lead the nations into endless light.
Now, it is time for the Jataka Tales, which is a large collection of Buddhist morality stories whereby Buddha recounts some of his past lives on his journey towards enlightenment. Let us now watch the Jataka tale for today.
กณเวรชาดกว่าด้วยหญิงหลายผัวในสมัยพุทธกาลเมื่อครั้งที่พระบรมศาสดาสัมมาสัมพุทธเจ้าประทับอยู่ณพระเชตวันมหาวิหารทรงปรารภการประเล้าประโลมของภรรยาเก่าของภิกษุจึงตรัสพระธรรมเทศนานี้ ครั้งนั้นในพระนครสาวัตถีมีกุลบุตรคนหนึ่งได้ฟังพระธรรมเทศนาของพระศาสดาแล้วรู้สึกเลื่อมใสจึงขอบรรพชาถวายตนในพระพุทธศาสนาครั้นบวชแล้วภิกษุนั้นก็ไปบิณฑบาตกับอาจารย์และพระอุปัชฌาย์แต่อาหารที่ชาวบ้านถวายกลับมีไม่เพียงพอบางครั้งภิกษุนั้นจึงได้รับเพียงน้ำข้าวบ้างหรือข้าวตังข้าวตากบ้างซึ่งไม่พออิ่ม
วันนี้ได้กินน้ำข้าวอีกแล้วเฮ้ยกินแค่เนี้ยจะไปพออิ่มที่ไหนกัน
เมื่อมีอาหารไม่พออิ่มภิกษุนั้นก็ถือเอาอาหารที่ตนได้แล้วกลับไปยังบ้านของภริยาเก่าเห็นดังนั้นก็เอาภัตตาหารในบาตรทิ้งเสียแล้วถวายอาหารอย่างดีที่เตรียมไว้แก่ภิกษุนั้น
โอ้โหทำไมในบาตรของหลวงพี่เนี่ยมีแต่น้ำข้าวล่ะจ๊ะไม่ได้การล่ะเดี๋ยวน้องเนี่ยจะเอาอาหารดีๆเนี่ยมาถวายดีกว่านะจ๊ะ
ภิกษุนั้นติดในรสอาหารภรรยาเก่าจนในเวลาต่อมาภิกษุนั้นก็คิดจะสึกเพื่อกลับไปอยู่กับภรรยาเก่าเมื่อคิดได้ดังนั้นจึงไปหาพระอาจารย์และอุปัชฌาย์เพื่อขอสึก
พระอาจารย์ข้ามาขอสึกขอรับ
เจ้าก็ตั้งใจบวชแต่แรกทำไมถึงคิดจะสึกเสียล่ะ
ข้าไม่สามารถตัดภรรยาเก่าได้ขอรับ
ถ้าเช่นนั้นเจ้าจงไปเฝ้าพระศาสดาก่อนเถิด
พระอาจารย์และพระอุปัชฌาย์นำภิกษุนั้นเข้าเฝ้าเมื่อพระศาสดาทรงรู้ว่าภิกษุนั้นต้องการละจากเพศบรรพชิตแล้วจึงตรัสเตือนสติภิกษุนั้นดูก่อนภิกษุเมื่อชาติก่อนเธออาศัยหญิงนี้จึงได้รับการตัดศีรษะด้วยดาบพระศาสดาทรงตรัสดังนี้แล้วจึงทรงนำเอาเรื่องในอดีตมาสาธกดังต่อไปนี้ในอดีตการเมื่อพระเจ้าพรหมทัตครองราชสมบัติอยู่ในนครพาราณสีพระโพธิสัตว์เกิดฤกษ์โจรในเรือนของคฤหบดีคนหนึ่งในกาสิกคามเมื่อพระโพธิสัตว์เจริญวัยแล้วก็กลายเป็นมหาโจรมีกำลังดุจช้างสารใครๆไม่สามารถจับตัวได้เป็นที่หวาดกลัวของชาวบ้านชาวเมืองทั้งหลาย
เฮ้ยเจ้าโจรนั่นลงมือปล้นอีกแล้วไม่มีใครจับมันได้เลยหรือไงกันเนี่ย
ข้าละกลัวจริงๆถ้ามาปล้นบ้านข้าล่ะก็ต้องแย่แน่
ๆจนอย่างเจ้านะหรือจะมีอะไรให้โจรมันปล้น
แหมเจ้าน่ะร่ำรวยนักหรือดีล่ะขอให้โจรมาปล้นบ้านเจ้าสักวันพรุ่งนี้เลยละกัน
อ้าวเจ้านี่ปากเสียเนี่ย
วันหนึ่งมหาโจรได้ปล้นเรือนของเศรษฐีแห่งหนึ่งได้ทรัพย์สมบัติมามากมายชาวเมืองทั้งหลายจึงนำเรื่องนี้กราบทูลต่อพระราชา
ตอนนี้มีมหาโจรออกปล้นในเมืองของเราสร้างความหวาดกลัวให้ชาวบ้านทั้งหลาย ขอพระองค์ทรงโปรดให้จับโจรผู้นี้ด้วยเถิดพระเจ้าค่ะ
พระราชาทรงรับสั่งให้ทหารที่รักษาพระนครไปจับมหาโจรนั้นจนในเวลาต่อมาก็สามารถจับมหาโจรได้พร้อมของกลาง
พวกเราจับตัวมหาโจรได้พร้อมของกลางแล้วพระเจ้าค่ะดีมากเอามันไปตัดหัว
ขณะที่มหาโจรถูกนำตัวไปประหารนั้นหญิงคณิกานางหนึ่งนามว่าสามาเป็นนางคณิกาที่พระราชาทรงโปรดปรานเห็นมหาโจรนั้นก็เกิดต้องตาต้องใจเกิดความรักใคร่ในตัวโจรนั้น
โจรผู้นี้เนี่ยรูปงามเหลือเกินดีละเราจะเอามาเป็นสามีของเราให้ได้
นางสามามอบทรัพย์1,000ให้หญิงคนรับใช้เพื่อติดสินบนเจ้าหน้าที่โดยอ้างว่ามหาโจรผู้นี้เป็นพี่ชายของนางสามาผู้เป็นที่โปรดปรานของพระราชา
โจรผู้นี้เป็นพี่ชายของนายข้าท่านโปรดรับเงินนี้ไว้แล้วปล่อยตัวไปเถิด
จะให้ข้าปล่อยไปได้ยังไงโจรเนี่ยใครๆก็รู้ว่าทางการต้องการตัวถ้าข้าปล่อยไปหัวได้หลุดจากบ่ากันพอดี
ท่านก็ช่วยหน่อยเถิดเงินนี่จำนวนก็ไม่น้อยถ้าท่านรับไว้ก็สบายไปหลายปีเลย
เจ้าหน้าที่ผู้คุมตัวมหาโจรอยากได้เงินสินบนนั้นจึงได้วางแผนที่จะสับเปลี่ยนตัวมหาโจรกับคนอื่นโดยให้หญิงรับใช้กลับไปบอกอุบายนี้แก่นางสามา
จะว่าไปมันก็พอมีทางถ้าเจ้าหาคนมานั่งในรถนั่นแทนได้ก็คงไม่มีใครรู้
ในการนั้นมีบุตรเศรษฐีผู้หนึ่งหลงรักนางสามาให้ทรัพย์1,000ทุกวันแม้วันนั้นบุตรเศรษฐีก็นำทรัพย์ 1,000 มาให้แก่นางเช่นเคย
น้องสามาวันนี้พี่เอาเงินมาให้เจ้าเหมือนเดิมมาให้พี่ชื่นใจหน่อยเจ้าคิดถึงพี่บ้างหรือเปล่า
ฝ่ายนางสามาเมื่อรับทรัพย์1,000แล้วก็แกล้งร้องไห้แล้วจึงหลอกให้บุตรเศรษฐีทำตามอุบายที่นางวางไว้
น้องสามาเจ้าร้องไห้ทำไมใครรังแกเจ้าบอกพี่สิ
โจรที่ถูกจับได้เมื่อคืนเป็นพี่ชายของข้าเองข้าต้องเอาเงินนี้ไปให้เจ้าหน้าที่เพื่อปล่อยพี่ชายของข้า
แบบนี้นี่เองเจ้าไม่ต้องร้องไห้เดี๋ยวข้าจะนำเงินนี่ไปเองเจ้ารอฟังข่าวดีที่นี่เถิด
นางสามาหลอกให้บุตรเศรษฐีนำทรัพย์1,000ไปให้เจ้าหน้าที่เมื่อบุตรเศรษฐีไปถึงก็ถูกเจ้าหน้าที่จับกุมตัวไว้แล้วจับเปลี่ยนตัวกับมหาโจรโดยให้มหาโจรนั่งอยู่ในยานที่มิดชิดแล้วส่งตัวไปให้นางสามาส่วนบุตรเศรษฐีนั้นถูกนำตัวไปตัดศีรษะในยามดึกแล้วเสียบร่างไว้ที่หลาว
อย่าโทษข้าเลยถ้าจะโทษก็โทษที่เจ้าโง่เองเถิด
อย่าท่านเข้าใจผิดแล้วปล่อยข้าไปเถิดข้าไม่ใช่โจรปล่อยข้า
ตั้งแต่นั้นมานางสามาก็ไม่รับแขกอีกเที่ยวอภิรมย์ชมชื่นอยู่กับมหาโจรฝ่ายโจรเมื่อเห็นพฤติกรรมของนางสามาแล้วก็คิดได้ว่าหากนางมีใจให้ชายอื่นเมื่อใดก็คงคิดฆ่าตนได้เช่นกัน
ท่านพี่คิดอะไรอยู่เหรอจ๊ะข้าน่ะจะนวดให้ท่านพี่เอง
เปล่าจ้าพี่คิดว่าโชคดีเหลือเกินที่ได้มาอยู่กับเจ้าน่ะนางสามาผู้นี้หากวันข้างหน้าเกิดชอบใจชายอื่นก็คงฆ่าเราได้เช่นกันเราควรหนีไปที่อื่นดีกว่า
วันหนึ่งมหาโจรได้ออกอุบายที่จะหลบหนีโดยแกล้งชวนนางสามาไปเที่ยวเล่นในสวนอุทยานครั้นไปถึงสวนอุทยานแล้วก็ทำทีเหมือนต้องการจะร่วมอภิรมย์จึงพาเข้าไประหว่างพุ่มต้นยี่โถแห่งหนึ่งทำทีเหมือนสวมกอดนางสามานั้นแล้วจึงกดนางลงจนสลบ จากนั้นจึงปลดเครื่องอาภรณ์ทั้งปวงนำติดตัวหลบหนีไปด้วย
อย่าโทษข้าเลยนะอยู่กับเจ้าวันหนึ่งข้าก็ต้องตาย
ต่อมาเมื่อนางสามาฟื้นขึ้นไม่เห็นมหาโจรถามหญิงรับใช้ก็ไม่มีใครเห็นนางจึงคิดว่ามหาโจรสำคัญว่านางตายแล้วจึงกลัวแล้วหลบหนีไป
โถท่านพี่คงคิดว่าน้องตายแล้วจึงตกใจหนีไป
ตั้งแต่นั้นมานางสามาก็เฝ้าคร่ำครวญถึงมหาโจรไม่เป็นอันกินอันนอนคิดแต่จะหาทางนำตัวมหาโจรกลับมาให้ได้นางได้เชิญพวกคนนักฟ้อนมาแล้วมอบทรัพย์1,000เพื่อให้แสดงขับร้องเพลงในที่ต่างๆเพื่อบอกให้มหาโจรรู้ว่านางยังมีชีวิตอยู่
ท่านจะให้พวกเราทำยังไงก็ว่ามาเถิด
พวกเจ้าไปที่ไหนก็จงร้องเพลงบอกให้สามีของข้ารู้ว่าข้าน่ะยังมีชีวิตอยู่หากพบสามีข้าแล้วจงนำเขากลับมาหาข้าหรือถ้าเขาไม่มาก็จงส่งข่าวมาเถิด
พวกนักฟ้อนรำรับเงินมาแล้วก็ทำการแสดงตามสถานที่ต่างๆจนกระทั่งมาถึงบ้านปัจจันตคามแห่งหนึ่งที่มหาโจรนั้นหนีมาอยู่
ท่านกอดรัดนางสามาด้วยแขนในสมัยที่อยู่ในกอชบามีสีแดงเธอได้สั่งความไม่มีโรคมายังท่าน
มหาโจรได้ฟังบทเพลงแล้วก็แปลกใจไม่เชื่อว่านางสามายังมีชีวิตอยู่จึงได้เข้าไปพูดคุยกับบรรดานักฟ้อนเหล่านั้น
ฮะที่เจ้าว่านางสามายังไม่ตายน่ะเป็นความจริงหรือ
ท่านคงเป็นสามีของนางสินะนางให้พวกเรานำตัวท่านกลับไป
ข้าไม่เชื่อหรอกนางตายไปแล้ว
นางยังไม่ตายจริงๆตอนนี้นางเฝ้าแต่คิดถึงท่านโปรดกลับไปกับเราเถิด
มหาโจรได้ฟังดังนั้นก็รู้ว่านางสามายังมีชีวิตอยู่แต่ก็ไม่ปรารถนาจะกลับไปอยู่กับนางจึงบอกกับบรรดานักฟ้อนรำให้กลับไปเสีย
พวกเจ้ากลับไปเถิดข้าไม่ต้องการอยู่กับนางที่ฆ่าได้แม้กระทั่งคนรักเก่าวันข้างหน้าหากนางพบคนที่ถูกใจนางก็คงฆ่าเราได้เช่นกัน
บรรดานักฟ้อนทั้งหลายได้กลับไปบอกสิ่งที่มหาโจรพูดแก่นางสามาเมื่อนางได้ฟังดังนั้นก็สำนึกในความผิดของตนแล้วเลิกล้มความตั้งใจที่จะนำตัวมหาโจรกลับมา
ข้าผิดไปแล้วสมควรแล้วล่ะที่ท่านพี่จะทิ้งข้าไป
พระศาสดาครั้นทรงนำพระธรรมเทศนานี้มาแล้วจึงทรงประกาศสัจจะแล้วทรงประชุมชาดกในเวลาจบสัจจะภิกษุผู้กระสันถึงภรรยาเก่าก็ดำรงอยู่ในโสดาปัตติผลบุตรเศรษฐีในครั้งนั้นได้เป็นภิกษุรูปนี้นางสามาในครั้งนั้นได้เป็นปุราณทุติยิกาภรรยาเก่าส่วนโจรในครั้งนั้นได้เป็นเราตถาคตฉะนี้แหละ
Truth is undivided, this must be our guide. All divisions vanish where the truth is known. This the greatest lesson by Lord Buddha shown. Forward marching ever in the Dharma's mind till we lead the nations into endless life.
พ
That concludes today's program. If you have any questions about the contents of our broadcast, please feel free to reach out to us at info@buddhadharmatv.com. Our dedicated team remains committed to sharing the profound teachings of the Buddha, helping you walk the path of wisdom and enlightenment. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow at the same time. Namo Buddhaya.